Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mr. Pad Paramahansa, Parvajikacharya Ashtotar that Shri Srimad Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Vishnu Pad Paramahansa, Parvajikacharya Ashtotar that Shri Srimad Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavini Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay, so we're going to, hopefully you don't mind, we're going to do that 20 to 23 again because it's so rich. Is it okay? All right. What is that up there? Oh, my phone. All right, why don't you take it then? Okay, we're on page 274 when you get a chance. Sorry, 275. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, give me a second here. Dropped the ball. I ran out of battery power on my thing. Didn't plug it in. Okay. On this fourth day of September 2019 in SanDiego, a reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Suresh, page 275. You got it? Okay, you're ready. And we are reading from Dhyana Yoga. That's the 6th chapter, the Yoga of Meditation. Texts 20 to 23. On page 275. Yatro paramate chittam nirudhang yoga sevaya yatta chaivatmanatmanam pashyan atmani tushyati sukham atyantikam yattad buddhi grayamatindriyam veti yatra nachayvayam Stitas chalati tatpataha yang labdva chapadang labham manyate nadikam tataha yasmin stito na dukkena guruna pibachalyate tam vidya dukkha sanyoga viyogam yoga sangitam. Okay, why don't you start again, Master? Yatro paramate chitram nirudham yoga sevaya yatta chayavatmanatmanam pashyan atmani tushyati. Go ahead, Ace. Sukham atyantikam yattad buddhi grahimatindriyam veti yatra nachaybayam sitas chalati tatpataha. So, Alberto, I'm assuming you don't want to go. You can try. Try number 3. Go ahead. Yan labdva. No, it's too hard. Okay, no problem. I'll finish it off and then read the English. Yang labdva chapadam labham manyate nadikam tataha yasmin stito na dukkena guruna pibachalyate tam vidya dukkha sanyoga viyogam yoga sangitam. All right, translation. In the stage of perfection called trance or samadhi, one's mind is completely restrained from material mental activities by practice of yoga. This perfection is characterized by one's ability to see the self by the pure mind and to relish and rejoice in the self. In that joyous state, one is situated in boundless transcendental happiness, realized through transcendental senses. Established thus, one never departs from the truth, and upon gaining this, he thinks there is no greater gain. Being situated in such a position, one is never shaken, even in the midst of greatest difficulty. This indeed is actual freedom from all miseries arising from material contact. So this purport isn't that long, so we're going to read it once more. Purport: by practice of yoga, one becomes gradually detached from material concepts. This is the primary characteristic of the yoga principle. And after this, one becomes situated in trance or samadhi, which means that the yogi realizes the supersoul through transcendental mind and intelligence, without any of the misgivings of identifying the self with the superself, the smallest self with the superself. In other words, the Atma with the Paramatma. Yoga practice is more or less based on the principles of the Patanjali system. We are on page 276. Okay. Some unauthorized commentators try to identify the individual soul with the supersoul, and the monists think this to be liberation. But they do not understand the real purpose of the Patanjali system of yoga. There is an acceptance of transcendental pleasure in the Patanjali system. But the monists do not accept this transcendental pleasure out of fear of jeopardizing the theory of oneness. The duality of knowledge and knower is not accepted by the non-dualist. But in this verse, transcendental pleasure realized through transcendental senses is accepted. And this is corroborated by Patanjali Muni, the famous exponent of the yoga system. The great sage declares in his Yoga Sutras 434, Purushartha shunyanam gunanam pati prasavaha kaivalyam sarupa patishta va chitti shaktir iti. This chitti shakti, or internal potency, is transcendental. Purushartha means material religiosity, economic development, sense gratification, and at the end, the attempt to become one with the Supreme. So I'm just going to explain a few things as we go along, because it may be a little mysterious. Purushartha. Purushartha means the goal of human life. And traditionally, there are these four purusharthas. Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. In the Vedic culture, not necessarily spiritual, but even in the material side, and there's a material side also with the Varna Ashram and the Karma Kanda section of the Vedas, where one practices worship of Indra or Chandra or Surya, and for the hope of some material benefit in this life or the next. But he does it within the Vedic paradigm, leads a moral life, and does all kinds of restrictions. But the goal is ultimately material. So that's what Prabhupada is referring here. When he uses the word Purushartha, he's referring to these Purusharthas, and the four: material religiosity, that's Dharma; economic development, that's Artha; sense gratification is Kama; and at the end, the attempt to become one with the Supreme, that's Moksha. So I just want to clear that up. This oneness with the Supreme is called Kaivalyam by the monist. But according to Patanjali, this Kaivalyam is an internal or transcendental potency by which the living entity becomes aware of his constitutional position. In the words of Lord Chaitanya, this state of affairs is called Chaito Darbanamarjanam, or clearance of the impure mirror of the mind. Now, I think this is a nice cue. There's many ways of tackling this purport, which is very rich. But remind me to come back when we finish, because we'll focus on this Chaito Darbanamarjanam, which is the beginning of the Shikshastika. So this Chaito Darbanamarjanam means clearance of the impure mirror of the mind. This, quote, clearance is actually liberation, or Bhavamahadavagni Nirvapadam. That's the rest of the first line of the Shikshastika. The theory of nirvana, also preliminary, corresponds with this principle. In the Bhagavatam 2.10.6, this is called Sorupena Vivastati. The Bhagavad Gita also confirms this situation in this verse. So we'll also talk about this Sorupena Vivastati. After nirvana, or material cessation, there is the manifestation of spiritual activities or devotional service to the Lord, known as Krishna consciousness. In the words of the Bhagavatam, Sorupena Vivastati, this is the real life of the living entity. Sorup means one's constitutional position, and Vivastati means situated in one. Maya, or illusion, is the condition of spiritual life contaminated by material infection. Liberation from this material infection does not mean destruction of the original eternal position of the living entity. Patanjali also accepts this by his words Kaivalyam Sorupa Pratishta Va Chitti Shaktiriti. This Chitti Shakti, or transcendental pleasure, is real life. This is confirmed in Vedanta Sutta 1.1.12 as Anandamayo Bhyasat, being filled and constitutionally filled with bliss. This is a description of Krishna. This natural transcendental pleasure is the ultimate goal of yoga and is easily achieved by execution of devotional service, or bhakti yoga. Bhakti yoga will be vividly described in the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. In the yoga system, as described in this chapter, there are two kinds of samadhi, called sampragyata samadhi and asampragyata samadhi. When one becomes situated in the transcendental position by various philosophical researchers, he is said to have achieved sampragyata samadhi. In the asampragyata samadhi, there is no longer any connection with mundane pleasure, for one is then transcendental to all sorts of happiness derived from the senses. When the yogi is once situated in that transcendental position, he's never shaken from it. Unless the yogi is able to reach this position, he is unsuccessful. Today's so-called yoga practice, which involves various sense pleasures, is contradictory. A yogi indulging in sex and intoxication is a mockery. Even those yogis who are attracted by the siddhis, or perfections, in the process of yoga are not perfectly situated. If yogis are attracted by the byproducts of yoga, then they cannot attain the stage of perfection, as is stated in this verse. Persons, therefore, indulging in the make-show practice of gymnastic feats or siddhis should know that the aim of yoga is lost in that way. The best practice of yoga in this age is Krishna consciousness, which is not baffling. A Krishna-conscious person is so happy in his occupation that he does not aspire after any other happiness. There are many impediments, especially in this age of hypocrisy, to practicing Hatha Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, and Jnana Yoga. But there is no such problem in executing Karma Yoga or Bhakti Yoga. As long as the material body exists, one has to meet the demands of the body, namely eating, sleeping, defending, and mating. But a person who is in pure bhakti yoga or in Krishna consciousness does not arouse the senses while meeting the demands of the body. Rather, he accepts the bare necessities of life, making the best use of a bad bargain, and enjoys transcendental happiness in Krishna consciousness. He is callous toward incidental occurrences, such as accidents, disease, scarcity, or even the death of a most dear relative. But he is always alert to execute his duties in Krishna consciousness or bhakti yoga. Accidents never deviate him from his duty. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita 2.14, agama pahino nityas tang satikshvasa bharata. He endures all such incidental occurrences because he knows that they come and go and do not affect his duties. In this way he achieves the highest perfection in yoga practice. Om jnana timarandasya jnananjana shalakaya Chakshu unmidatam mena tasmai shri gurave namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So I always like this section because it really gives us a little summary of what the goal is. Now, even though it's describing Bhakti, Ashtanga yoga or dhyana yoga, meditative yoga, the process here is very close to what you hear about the great devotees experiencing. And that is the perfect one's ability to see the self by the pure mind and relish and rejoice in the self. So we spoke about this last night, how Krishna consciousness is a process of purification. Remember, we were going to remind me about this beginning of Shikshastika. Cheto Darpana Marjanam. Marjanam means to polish, to cleanse. And what are you cleansing here? The mirror of the mind. Now, it's interesting that Lord Chaitanya calls it a mirror of the consciousness. Because really, the mind is kind of like that. Whatever it comes in touch with, there's an impression created. And you're also getting an impression of your own identity. Because a lot of what you're experiencing is your own body, your sensations, and so many things go into make up what you consider to be yourself in the illusory state. So what is it that's doing the polishing? Does anyone know what this verse is about? Chanting of Hare Krishna. This whole verse is about the power of the yoga process of congregational chanting of the holy name. The last line of this verse is Vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam. Now kirtan is, I'm sure it's about to enter, if it hasn't already entered into the English language, because this is what English does. But it means, obviously, chanting. Chanting the Lord's name, His glories. This is also kirtan that we're doing. San is a prefix that intensifies. It more or less means complete. Just like we have sannyas, which is discussed in this chapter, because it has to do with complete renunciation. That's the whole idea. Sannyasis are meant to be in this fourth order of life. Live as austerely as possible. They're devoid of any attraction to material life. And they're emblems of renunciation, but also, especially in the Bhakti Yoga process, they're emblems of how you can be completely happy and peaceful in that state of relying on very little. And the ideals of this, the great examples, of course, Lord Chaitanya himself showed, but the six Goswamis, how they took on the process of devotional service, met Lord Chaitanya. Rupa, Sanatan, and Raghunath were very, very wealthy. They had access to practically inconceivable wealth. But they became detached. They gave it up and went to Vrindavan and lived extremely austere lives. You read their lives, it's breathtaking. Practically no sleep, no eating. They certainly didn't have any houses. They went under a different tree each night. There's a beautiful song about them written by Srinivasacharya, who was the next generation. He was taught by Jiva Goswami along with Narottam Das and others, and they were the first preaching wave that took Krishna consciousness out of Vrindavan and into Bengal and different parts of India. So he wrote this beautiful song about the six Goswamis. And the fourth verse talks about this renunciation, the sannyas, and that is Tyakva. Tyakva means giving up. Tyakva Turnam ashesha mandalapati sheni sada tuchavat. Now, tuchavat means insignificant. What did they give up as insignificant? And they did it turnam. They did it quickly. It wasn't like, oh, it's a gradual process, No, they immediately gave up and went to Vrindavan. So, turnam ashesha mandalapati shreni means like a circle of aristocracy and wealth as you read about, and the queens and things, kings and stuff like that, because they were part of the aristocracy there. And so they gave it up, and what did they do? Bhutva dina ganeshako karunaya kopina kantashito. Out of their intense desire to show compassion to the fallen souls of this world, us, for the benefit of humanity at large. Dina means the neglected, wretched souls of the earth. Karunaya, out of compassion, kopina kantashito. That's symbolic of the renunciation. Kopina is a little, it's not even a dhoti, it's just like a loincloth, rejected, that you find lying around somewhere, the most humble kind of garment you could imagine. That's what they wore. And kanta means an upper garment, similar thing. So what did they do? So now you have these extraordinary, wealthy, influential persons, led by the three that I mentioned, Rupa, Sanatana, and Raghunath, who embody this. And they took on the most austere lifestyle you could imagine. We can't even conceive of it. It's even more difficult than these yogis. At least the yogis have their own cave. They got their own cave. This my spot in the forest, whatever. They're not even. They're living under a tree each night. So sleeping like 1.5 hours, if that. This is what we get from Prabhupada. So, but what was their state of mind? Now you get the feeling with these yogis, as he's describing it, that they're like gritting their teeth, and practicing pranayama and taking hold of that mind, which is the arch enemy, right? And it's trying to do it by force, pranayama, drill in the respiration. It's very austere. There's a lot of austerities involved, and you feel them as austerities. But these 6 Goswamis, the third line, their state of mind, they're Gopi Bhava Dasa Matabda Lahadi Kalola Magno Muhur. This is what they were experiencing. Externally, they wow, how could they exist? They must have been very skinny. So again and again, they were diving into the nectar ocean of the highest levels of prema bhakti, namely the gopis' love for Krishna. And they were writing about that, and they were preaching about it. And under Lord Chaitanya's instruction, they not only wrote the books and went around Vrindavan, which it was just like an empty forest at that time. There was no temples or anything. And everything had been lost. It was 5,000 years. So, but by their spiritual vision and a few old Babajis who lived there, they were able to find and excavate the places of pastime. So they said, oh, here is where Krishna killed Keshi. Here is where he met the gopis and so forth. And they gradually developed it by their efforts, and further generations. And because there were many, pious Vaishnavas who were also wealthy businessmen, and some of them wanted to serve. They saw the purity of these and the erudition and the prema of these 6 Goswamis. So they were able to get some donations. They wanted to give something. So what are you going to give to someone who doesn't even live need a house or anything? So, yes, build a temple. And so they built temples. They personally built them. They oversaw them and they directed them. And the money was provided by wealthy, merchants and things. And so there's these temples in Vrindavan that you see even today. So the idea is that their renunciation was just it wasn't a grit, a kind of a grit your teeth type of thing. It was natural. They had lost the taste for any of that and just rejected it completely. Chaktavat Turnam means they quickly gave it up completely and took on this lifestyle and became the most accomplished yogis, more than even these yogis here. So how did that happen? First, let's analyze this paragraph by paragraph. Prabhupada is making the point that Patanjali himself, who people often quote for this kaivalya. See, the idea is that there's kind of this given goal for anyone who is in the Vedic culture, and that is somehow get out of the bonds of birth and death, liberation. See? So, but for the impersonalists, the non-dualists, their method is to give up personhood entirely, to give up the idea of having senses and having a form and having activities. Because to them, all they know, and they're stuck on this, is material form, material senses, and that produces pain. That's a given, that's understood. Our material attachments bring us pain. When we enjoy sense gratification, that implants a desire in your mind to do it again and again, and eventually it becomes impossible. And so that unfulfilled desire helps to get you another body. It's a science, which people don't know, but that's what it is. So their idea is, well, let's void out the desires. In other words, we don't want to have another form because we know form and senses, that brings pain. So they're afraid of having a form again. So they posit that this Brahman, which is the Kaivalya, that's the undifferentiated. We sing every day, Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatari. Nirvishesha means no details. No form, no activities, no nothing. That means that whatever has details and whatever has all the Krishna's form and activities, that's all part of Maya. This is what the impersonalists say, the hardcore Mayavadis. You see, they're making a huge mistake, because the ultimate happiness is not simply in being free from birth and death. That's a negative thing. That's like the happiness of the patient in the hospital. You just had an accident. Okay, you're in traction, for a month. You're laid up. How depressing can it be? Okay, some friends visit, gradually. So what are you thinking about? God, I'm really hoping, I get full recovery of my legs, and get out. And gradually you get to that point where you can walk out of the hospital. And it's, what a relief, But is that really happiness? Then what? Is that all you do? You sit down in the lobby of the hospital on the curb and say, okay, I'm finally free of my disease, now I'm in good shape? No, you take up your activities in the rest of your life before, right? So that's exactly what we're undergoing. We're in a hospital or a reformatory, whatever you want to think. We're in recovery. Most people don't even know they're sick. They think normal life is all of this anxiety of, the way things are organized today is like a torture chamber. And it's not even normal material life, what to speak of transcendental life. But people don't know anything else. They're in ignorance. But you can see how it ultimately, you meet defeat just by the force of time. Everything you treasured, your relationships, children, grandchildren, whatever it may be, bank account, whole things you build up. What does it mean, really, in the end? You leave the body's lying on there and it's finished. Now what? All those relationships, everything is gone, your bank account is gone, your beloved so-and-so and whatnot is gone, your name and fame. What does it mean? It doesn't mean a thing. And then you go on to your next destination, and if you have no assets in devotional service, if you don't even know how to avoid sin, then chances are you perform some grievous sins and you lose the human form of life, which is a great tragedy. You don't die, nobody dies, the Jayate, Mriyate, Vakadachan, right in the second chapter. But you're going through this, one torturous experience after another. So that should be the impetus. I like to give this analogy. You've heard it a million times. I'm sorry, you've been going to class in the back. But we have, what is the inducement to practice Krishna consciousness? In other words, to enter into this whole discipline, of chanting and doing things. There's two things. Two basic things. One is, it's essential to cultivate the philosophy. That's why there's so many books. And there, you'll encounter this basic understanding, like I've just been outlining, that our real life is spiritual life. We have a transcendental existence that we've forgotten, which is full of variety. We have a form that's mentioned here. Swarupena vivastiti. Swarup means form. Rup means form. Swarup means your actual form, not all of these changing forms that we have right now or we've had in the past. Not material, but purely spiritual, just like Krishna's spiritual form. It doesn't change, although he has varieties of forms he manifests, but it's always pure spirit. So that's what we're aiming to get to. And in the process, we can leave behind all the suffering of this world. We will hopefully forget all about it. It's not our home. So that's the one impetus from behind, meaning like birth, death, old age, and disease, and the threefold miseries. They're there. This is part of knowledge. Krishna will tell in 13. There's all these aspects of knowledge, and one of them is janma, mrityu, jara, vyadi, dukkha, dosha, anudarshanam. Anudarshana means to see with clearly. What? The evils or the difficulties of birth, old age, disease, and death. So they're there. If you forget about that, then it's foolishness. So that's behind. That's Kali behind us. That's Durga with her trident, giving us get going. But that's not all there is. There's also Krishna in the front inviting us. Come, join the dance. In other words, we have the attraction of Krishna, which actually starts the whole thing off. Because most people walk in the door, and they don't know anything about anything, but there's this music going on, and then there's the prasadam, which is also Krishna. And even if you're attracted to it on a material level, you're still attracted to Krishna. The point is that the attraction is simultaneous. That has to be there, not just the gritting your teeth and say, I'm going to get out of this birth and death. That's not enough, because the mind can easily fall into this idea of enjoying or postponing or denying the truth of it. But if you firmly have both sides, that you have the sadhana so that you can do those things to keep you attracted to Krishna, at the same time cultivating the knowledge so that you're sober minded. Yeah, it's a serious business also. In other words, it's a serious business that ends in frolicking in the spiritual world. The end point of it all is to play eternally with Krishna. This idea of play. Nothing is mandated. It's all on the basis of love, really. That's the end point. But it's a serious business to get to that end point, because we're now in the throes of the material world. So anyway, so from in front of us, Krishna is attracting us in so many ways, and behind us, Durga is reminding us, hey, get serious. And this hopefully will keep us going in the right direction. Okay, now, so Purushartha Shunyanam means free of these four. This is very interesting that this quote is here. This is probably coming from the commentators by Bilvamango, the pill this out. Shunya means devoid of. Purushartha, free of these four Purusharthas that I mentioned, right? Which is religiosity, sometimes known as Dharma, although not the supreme Dharma. Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. Religiosity, economic development, sense gratification, and then when you get tired of that, moksha, liberation. But here it says it's devoid of that, you see? Because you're, in actual kaivalya, liberation, sarupa pratishta. It's not without form, it's with your sarup. And you get chitti shakti. Chitti shakti is the pleasure energy, that's Radharani. Radharani is love of Krishna personified. See, there's all of these internal energies. Ladani Shakti. Ladani. The Prahlad? Prahlad means, he was given that name because he supposedly was giving pleasure to his father. Well, ultimately he didn't do that. But Ladani Shakti is the pleasure energy of Krishna. He has these different internal energies. And Radharani is that personified. What gives Krishna the most pleasure? To experience the loving exchange with Radharani. And what gives her the pleasure? To experience Krishna's happiness from him enjoying her loving exchange. That's and there's all varieties of ways that they do it. And the Goswamis were writing about that. So now just to discuss again this Shikshastika verse. Let's go through this, because this is our yoga practice. The yoga practice is centered on the chanting of the holy name. The chanting of the holy name is a complete process. The beautiful verse describing Nama Chintamani Krishnas Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha Purna Shuddho Nitya Mukto Abhinatva Nama Namino. So this is really an important verse. I'm going to just run through it. So the holy name of Krishna is like a Chintamani gem. Now this Chintamani gem, Prabhupada, I heard a tape, he called it, it's a touchstone or a philosopher's stone. A touchstone literally is a stone, if you look it up in the dictionary, where the people who deal with gold all the time, they can touch it to the stone and tell if it's gold or not. But what Prabhupada meant by a touchstone is the philosopher's stone, which means you touch it to something, it turns to gold. So how is that like the holy name? You touch your consciousness to it, and it transforms your consciousness
for the good. In other words, purifying, makes you Krishna conscious. So Nama Chintamani Krishnas, the name of Krishna is Chintamani, like a Chintamani. Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha. Now this word Vigraha means form, not exactly like Sarup, but the same idea. Vigraha. Chaitanya Rasa means the concentrated essence of your relation with Krishna. Everything can be realized. Each of us has this relationship with God. A variety of the 5 main relationships. Actually 4. Dasya Ras, servant, eternal servant of the Lord. A friendship Ras, which is more intimate. Parental, which is even more intimate than the friends. And the ultimate Madhurya Ras, as a lover and beloved. So those rasas are here in this world. We have reflections of them. But they're not as, pure. We try to enjoy them, but oftentimes they end and they turn to just the opposite. Not so with Krishna. So all of that can be realized by the chanting, because, and he explains in the next couple of lines. Chaitanya Purna. Purna means complete. It's a complete process. If we perfect the chanting of the holy name, there's of course a lot of instruction on how to avoid the offenses and all these things. But there's a process. Then we'll see that this is a complete yoga process. That's why you see that the Goswamis, they spend so much time just chanting. Both for their own enlightenment as an example for people, teaching. That it completely purifies the heart and brings you in touch with Krishna and awakens your original relationship with Krishna and puts you exactly in this position here. In that joyous state when it's situated in boundless transcendental happiness, realized through transcendental sentence. And one never departs from the truth, and upon gaining this, he thinks there's no greater gain. Not so for the yogis who experience the siddhis. They always think there's another siddhi I can get. Or this yogi down the road here has more siddhis than me, I have to get... There's a competition. I spoke about Durvasa Muni, remember? He was so envious, you couldn't live with him. That's what his name means. Hard to live with. That's not the state you want to be in. He's an accomplished yogi, but he's not in this realm, is it? He's got deviated by the powers. There's a verse Lord Chaitanya speaks to Sanatan. He says, who is really peaceful? Because that's a very important aspect, byproduct, if you will, of yoga. You want to become peaceful in this world. Be able to remain peaceful even in the midst of the greatest disturbance. That's real peacefulness. Dhira, you see. So he gives this nice little verse. He says, Krishna bhakta nishkama ata eva shanta. Bhukti mukti siddhi kami sakali ashanta. So ashanta, a person who is shanta is one who is very peaceful. So he says, Krishna bhakta, the pure devotee of Krishna, is peaceful. Why? Because he doesn't want anything. He doesn't want anything material. He's completely fulfilled in simply being Krishna conscious and serving Krishna. But on the other hand, he's got the whole world divided into these 4 categories. Bhukti, Mukti, Siddhi, Kami. That's the 3 material sides. So the Bhukti Kami, a Kami is someone who wants something very much. 99.99% of the people. They want something material. Mostly gross, sometimes subtle, mixture of gross and subtle. So how can you be peaceful? Even if you want, maybe even if you get it, nothing really lives up. Every material pleasure is eventually wanes, So you can't be peaceful like that. You can't be peaceful if you're filled with all these unfulfilled material desires. And then you have those who realize that, and they are called the mukti kamis, those who want liberation from this. But I want it for me. I don't care about anyone else. The yogi goes off into the Himalayas somewhere and leaves the cities, and everyone else can do what they're doing, but I'm going to get mukti. But that's also a kind of kama. It's a material desire. It's not really ultimately spiritual. You see? And that kind of mukti is not secure, because you're not fixed in your relationship to Krishna. You haven't purified your senses, you repressed them, denied them. So that you've denied your form and all of these activities. It's unnatural for the soul. That's spoken of in the Bhagavatam by the prayers of the demigods for Krishna in the womb. Ye nyeda bindaksha vimuktamaninas. Those who think they're liberated, others besides your devotees, ultimately fall down. Because although performing these severe austerities, the very few who can get up to the spiritual platform, eventually the desire for relationship, something happens and they come back down. Did we talk about Salburi Muni? You remember Salburi Muni? Salburi Muni is another example. He was a serious yogi. And the serious yogis can overcome ordinary limitations. So he was meditating underneath the water of the Yamuna River, not taking advantage of the Dham and, going on pilgrimage and chanting, but he's meditating in the water, right? And for years underwater. And then so he's obviously abstaining, he's renounced. But then he opened his eyes a little bit and he saw, there's 2 fish copulating. Lost it. He lost it. Yeah, it is kind of comic, isn't it? After all that, he comes out, he wants to get married. You can imagine, if you stay in the bathtub a little too long, how wrinkly your feet get, So he was all wrinkled up and, nobody wanted to marry him. So with his mystic power, he turned himself into a very attractive young man, And he ended up with marrying 50 daughters of this king. And by each daughter, he had 100 sons. So now he's got a family of 5,000 from plus the 50 wives. And what have I done? He's all entangled. You can imagine having to worry about all that maintenance, So eventually he renounces and he becomes a devotee. But the point is that just repressing the senses ultimately doesn't work. You need to engage the senses. You need to sublimate the activities of the senses. And that's what our process is. So, where were we? So the internal energy, that is what he's mentioning here, Sarup Pratishta, being situated in one's actual Sarup and experiencing the Chitti Shakti, which is the spiritual energy of Srimati Radharani. So Chaito Darpana Marjana, I'm just going to run through this verse. This is a key verse for us. This is the first verse of the Shikshastika, and it gives 7 benefits of chanting the holy name, all in metaphorical statements. I wrote an article many years ago in the BTG about this verse. So Chaito Darpana Marjana. So he compares the mind or the heart to a mirror. So it's polishing the mirror of the mind, so that we can actually see ourselves as pure spirit. And as soon as we do that, then Bhava Mahadavagnita, he compares this life in this world to a raging forest fire, but it's extinguished. It's extinguished by the cooling rains of the holy name. And not only that, but Shreya Kaidava Chandika Vadadanam. It's like this congregational chanting of the holy name, getting into it. Krishna's name. It's like the moonshine, that shines at night on this night blooming lotus called the Kumuda. And so it's Kairava. So it causes this Kairava blossom, which is likened to Shreya, or good fortune, to blossom. So it causes the lotus flower of good fortune to blossom in ourselves and also outside for those who hear it. So it's very auspicious. So the first thing is a personal benefit, Chaito Darpana Marjanam, and you become liberated. The fire is tamped down of birth and death. And now you're helping others to become liberated. So that's even more pleasing to Krishna. And Vidyavadu Jivanam. It is like the enlivenment of the wife of knowledge, of transcendental knowledge. I think that wife is like Mother Saraswati. There's the wife of Brahma, who's the knowledge mother. So it causes our natural knowledge that's buried in here to come out. And we start to feel that we're spiritual beings and like that. And then it says, Anandam Buddhivardhanam. It expands the ocean of bliss. It's like and Pratipadam Purnamita Swadanam allows us to taste the nectar we're always hankering for at every step. And so the last line, it says, Purnamita Sarvatma Snapadam Param. Let all the souls take a bath, snapadam, in the wonderful waters of the holy name. Vijayate Shri Krishna, and there will be victory for the holy name. So I'll give you my little poetic version. All glories to the chanting of Sri Krishna's holy names, which easily extinguishes samsara's blazing flames by polishing the lust-encrusted mirror of the heart. That chanting is the waxing moon that knows the secret art of causing the white lotus of good fortune to unfurl its petals far and wide throughout this bleak and blighted world. Of transcendental knowledge, which will take us to life's goal, the chanting of the name of Krishna is the life and soul. The ocean of ecstatic bliss floods far beyond its bounds, wherever Krishna's merciful and mystic name resounds. Indeed, whenever Krishna's names are sung in congregation, at every step one tastes a joy that knows no limitation. So here with great attention, as I earnestly request, please chant Shri Krishna's holy name and be supremely blessed. The soothing nectar of the name will bathe your consciousness, bestow pure love for Krishna, and eradicate distress. Obviously, I added a few more things there to make it come out even. So that's what we're all about. And that's the supreme yoga process, that once situated in perfection of this chanting, there's no leaving it. That exactly like here, once you're gaining it, you think there's no greater gain. Boundless transcendental happiness is exactly describing what Bhakti Yoga culminates in. And seeing, one quote from the Brahma Samhita, which is another wonderful book that's worth investigating. It's in the Pocket Vedas. And it says, Premanjana churita bhakti velochanena sandhas sadaiva didiyeshu veloki yanti yang shama sundadam achintugana sarupam govindamari purushantamaham bhajami. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord. Those who have anointed their eyes, spiritual eyes, with the salve of love, prema, they can see Govinda in their hearts, that Shyamasundar form at every moment. Prema churita bhakti velochane santa, the santas, the saints. Here we are sitting in SanDiego, it's the same word. Sadaiva hridayeshu, always within their hearts seeing. Veloki yanti. What do they see? Shyamasundram achincha guna sarupam. Here's that word sarup again. The very form of inconceivable, wonderful, all attractive qualities. Achincha guna sarupam. It is that Govinda, the prime person whom I adore. This is Brahma's Samhita, his song. So that's real. You're not going back. There's no falling away from that back into the material world. You're completely satisfied with your perception of Krishna, your relation to Krishna, your consciousness of Krishna, and your service to Krishna. Okay. Any discussion on these points? This is our last class for a while on this, because I have to go. I'm going on Saturday. Of course, we have Radhashtami on Friday. But Saturday I leave for Alatra for about, 10, 11 days. And I'll be back for a week or two. And off to Columbus. It's a month of travel. But I'm glad we were able to cover this part of it, and we'll resume in text 24 when we come back. But we're not through yet. We have a few minutes. Well, we have actually 2 minutes. So, how about a couple of verses about Radharani, since it's Radhashtami coming up. This is a coming attraction. I'm going to do this poem. It's called the Radhashtaka. Kunkamakta kanchanamja gavahari gorabha pitananchi tabja ganda kirti nindi sorabha ballavesha suna sava vanchitarti sarika maya matma para padma dasa dastu radhika. This is sung by the female parrots in the Govinda Lilamrita. There's an argument between the male and female parrot. Who's enchanting whom? The male says, oh, Krishna's enchanting Radha. And the female says, no, Radharani's enchanting Krishna. So this is the female. Her gold complexion steals the pride of golden lotus tinged with red. Her fragrance mocks the scent of lotus bloom with saffron powder spread. Her skill in satisfying Sri Hari is perfect and complete. May Radhika bestow on me the service of her lotus feet. So there's 8 verses like that, which I'll give you on Friday night. They asked me to speak, so I'll give a short, summary of Radharani, and then we'll do a slideshow with that, and everyone can dive in. All glory to Srila Prabhupada.